Hello, people, and welcome to The History of, a place where script writing is treated like an Olympic sport. We are back at that time again where the world is getting ready for the biggest sporting event of the American presidential term, the Olympics. When it comes to the Olympics, there's generally three types of people. The ones who are hyped up and will watch every second, then there's the kind that will watch it if they're on, and then there's the kind that just doesn't care and would rather do literally anything else. The Olympic Games themselves are actually incredibly old, dating back to sometime around 776 BC, and had running events, wrestling, horse racing, with and without chariots, and the hoplitodromus, a race in the armor of the hoplites. These games would continue for over 1,000 years until coming to an end under the Roman Emperor Theodosius in 393 AD. It wouldn't be until 1894 that the Frenchman Pierre de Coubertin would begin his plan to revive the Games with the first modern Olympic Games beginning in Athens in 1896 and continuing once every 4 years since. The differences between the Olympic Games of today and those of ancient Greece are not as big as you might expect. Sure, there's no modern-day hoplitodromus or sacrifices, but there are still a lot of the same sports, such as running events, jumping events, and wrestling. Heading back to the ancient Olympics, we know that they were started by the Greeks and were held between the men of the city-states. They were usually held in Olympia, more specifically the Pan-Hellenic religious sanctuary. The origins of the games aren't well known, however, as they got mixed into the mythology of the ancient Greeks, and it has become too difficult to tell what's true and what's not. We do know, though, that the games were held every 4 years, or what's called an Olympiad, and they became the popular way of keeping track of the years. An example of this would be something like the second year of the 8th Olympiad when Steve of Athens won the stadium. The Olympics would continue under the Roman rule of Greece, where they would be banned in AD 393. The generally accepted reason behind the ending of the Games was that Theodosius, the Roman emperor and a devout Christian, banned the Games because of their pagan rituals, which had become such a big part of the event. Before we jump to more modernish days, let's look at some of the highlights of the ancient Olympics. During the ancient Olympics, women weren't allowed to compete. However, it was still possible for a woman to be named an Olympic champion. This loophole was found in the chariot races, where the owner of the chariot, not the rider, was declared the champion. Kinesia, the daughter of a Spartan king, used this to win 2 Olympic Games in a row. At the peak of the ancient Olympics, over 40,000 people would come and watch the games. That's more than the entire population of Liechtenstein. Now that we know about the ancient Olympics, let's begin to talk about the Olympics we know today. We can trace the roots of our Olympics back to 1894 when the Frenchman, Pierre de Coubertin, would start his plan to revive the Games, beginning with the founding of the International Olympic Committee. His plan would be completed 2 years later when the first of the modern Olympics were hosted in Athens, Greece, with 280 athletes from 12 countries, competing in sports such as athletics, swimming, cycling, gymnastics, wrestling, fencing, shooting, and tennis. The games were held in the Pan-Athenic Stadium, which was originally built in 330 BC to host the Pan-Athenic Games, which was a possible rival to the Olympics, and were also banned in AD 393 with the Olympics. Since 1896, the Olympics have been held every 4 years, or every Olympiad, with very few exceptions. It was cancelled 3 times and delayed once. The first cancellation was because of World War I and was in 1916. The second 2 times were in 1940 and 1944 due to World War II. The most recent upset of the game schedule came in 2020, when the Tokyo Olympics were delayed until 2021 due to health concerns from COVID. On September 13th of 2017, the IOC decided that the 2024 Olympics would be hosted in Paris, France, and the 2028 Olympics would be hosted in Los Angeles, California, marking the first time that I can find that 2 host cities were decided at the same time. Since they began again, the Olympics have gone through a lot of changes, adding events and taking them away. Some of these discontinued events are American football, polo, croquet, water motorsports, and tug of war. Personally, I would really like to see tug of war make a comeback as an Olympic sport, but that's just me. Besides the regular Summer Olympics, there are also Winter Olympics, which happen in between the Summer Olympics. These began in 1924 in Charmant, France, and have grown to include sports such as bobsledding, curling, ice hockey, skating, skiing, and a few others. The Winter Olympics don't attract as much viewership as the Summer Games, but they still manage to bring in over 1 billion viewers each time. Originally, the Summer and Winter Olympics were held in the same year, but the IOC decided to split up the events, and 1992 was the last time the events were held in the same year, with the Winter Olympics happening on their own for the first time 2 years later in 1994. The reasoning as to why this was done is usually attributed to the fact that the IOC sells the broadcasting rights to the games, and by splitting up the events, they would have a more steady source of income. So as a quick recap, the Olympics are a really old sporting event dating back to ancient Greece, and then they took a break for around 1500 years before making a comeback as the world's most popular sporting event, bringing in millions of spectators, thousands of athletes, and billions of dollars of profits. But for now, that's the history, and as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.